OMG, you guys, today's the day. We can finally show you footage from the new Sony Alpha 1. I can't wait to show you. Let's just dive right in. Ooh, baby, baby. Hey everyone, I'm Geraci, timeless photographer and cinematographer. You've probably seen my work on Netflix's House of Cards, HBO, Showtime, anything in between. And this review of the A1 is from the perspective as a full-time professional shooter. Diving straight in, I got the A1 this weekend. I had a few days to play around with it, and I cannot wait to share the results. I'm gonna break this video down into a few different sections. First, we're gonna go and just jump straight in and talk about high ISO for both 8K video and 8K stills, as that seems to be what a lot of folks are most excited about. After that, I'll jump into talking about both the quality of the image from both video and still, and then talking about the buffer time, in-camera performance, and lots of little other tidbits. So let's just get to it. So let's talk about the high ISO quality of the Alpha 1. Here are some side-by-side comparisons with the Sony Alpha 1 and the Sony A7S III. All settings on the camera were identical to each other, and I started off at ISO 640 and then went all the way up to ISO 32,000. One thing you'll notice on the Alpha 1 is that it handles noise really well, specifically when you shoot 8K for a 4K timeline, which shouldn't be a surprise. What is a surprise though is that once you get to that 32,000 ISO level and apply a denoiser to it, the imagery just looks beautiful. In my humble opinion, it actually looks better than the A7S III at higher ISOs in that range. The only downside for the Alpha 1 is that it's a hard stop at ISO 32,000 for video. There's no expanded range past that, so if you really do need ultra high ISO, you'll have to revert back to the A7S III, which goes well beyond 32,000 ISO. That being said, 32,000 ISO is crazy amazing for an 8K resolution camera, and as you can see by these examples, it looks absolutely stunning. Here are some more examples at 32,000 ISO taken in real world situations. When it comes to still photography, high ISO looks quite nice. Beyond 20,000 ISO, this can come in really handy for wildlife, sports, and even action photographers. Here are a few examples of high ISO filming in both day and night. I haven't applied any noise reduction to the imagery, which if you did apply it would look even cleaner for the final image. Overall, for both video and photo, the high ISO ranges are damn impressive, and it means for me that I'll likely be using the A1 for pretty much anything and everything photo and video related from this point on. Now let's talk about the overall quality of the 8K 10-bit 420 video. From my experience shooting with it in both daytime and nighttime situation, I'm super excited for what I've seen. The downsampling alone from 8K to 4K makes the footage pop, and it looks absolutely breathtaking. I took a variety of shots using both HLG and S-Log picture profiles, as well as just the standard normal profile. When it comes to color grading the 8K 10-bit footage, it's a dream to work with. While 422 color would be better, it's still very easy to get the kind of grade you want with how flexible the footage is to work with in post. I was a bit apprehensive before using it, but once you get into the color panel of Resolve, it just works beautifully. I'm really in love with how easy it is to color grade this footage. And given my experience with it so far, I was able to pull anywhere from 1 to almost 2 stops of data from the underexposed scenes that I was shooting with, and the highlight recovery is anywhere from a half stop to almost a full stop, which is pretty damn impressive. When viewed in full 8K resolution, the image detail is crisp, colorful, and it's terrific to edit with. I didn't take a lot of 4K footage with this since it's nothing really new in that area, but I did do some shots with 4K 120p, which does look gorgeous. And I also did the 4K 60p in S35 mode. The S35 mode alone does look really gorgeous, and I can't wait to use it more out in the field. The detail is ultra sharp, and the 10-bit 422 color looks amazing in Resolve. The only real downside to the 8K footage is how much space it takes up. A 160 gig CF Express card only gives you about 53 minutes of record time, so even if you only shoot for 30 minutes, that's 80 gigs right there. I definitely recommend, if you do get this camera, getting at least 32 to 64 terabytes of either a NAS or a DAS storage to accommodate the file size, because you're gonna need it. You're also gonna need a super beefy computer to play back the files in full 8K resolution. I'm running on an 18-core i9 4.4 gigahertz with 128 gigs of RAM, 8 terabytes of NVMe SSD, and I'm also using an NVIDIA RTX 3090 to drive the playback inside of DaVinci Resolve. I've also tested this on some other computers utilizing lower grand graphics cards like the 2080 Ti and even the 1080 Ti, and it did take some effort to actually play back the footage. You can, however, transcode the footage from H.265 to ProRes 422 HQ, and it works a lot better in post because the long GOP format of H.265 really makes for stuttered playback. Now let's talk about how hot this camera gets. So right off the bat, yes, the camera does overheat. There's no denying it whatsoever. However, I don't think it's that bad comparative to some of the other cameras that are out there and to some of the other 8K cameras that I've used in the past. Here are my results from about 8 different independent tests. Operating in temperatures of 32 degrees to 52 degrees, the camera never overheated once while filming in 8K. The card did run out multiple times, but I could restart and go for another 53 minutes without any issues whatsoever. So if you are in a position where you're shooting in a lower temperature area, this works great for the camera. Now, I was operating at an ambient 78 degrees, and the camera did overheat at 24 minutes and 57 seconds, and that was with the heat warning turned on. With the heat warning turned off, it did stop at 38 minutes and 9 seconds, which is almost 12 minutes longer. I didn't have the ability to film in any other temperature-controlled room above 78 degrees, but I think it's safe to say that this camera will overheat in warmer temperatures or in direct sunlight. That being said, the refresh time was ridiculously quick. After turning the camera off for just a few seconds, maybe 35 to 45, I was able to turn the camera back on and shoot photos without any issues whatsoever. After a few minutes, I was able to shoot 8K video again with a runtime averaging anywhere between 20 and 25 minutes with the heat warning turned off. I would like to see Sony address this. I'm sure there's a firmware update that could be put out later on in the future, so we'll just have to stand by and see what happens. Next is the autofocus. I didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted on this, but from a perspective of just a casual shooting, I was really impressed with the AF tracking. For video, the IAF is fantastic. It tracks your subject. It's very similar to that of the A7SIII, and I would say it works about 95% of the time. There were some issues if the faces left the screen for too long and then reappeared. It would cycle through the focus, but overall it worked really well, and I was really impressed with it. Since I mainly shoot video, I didn't really do a thorough test when it came to photo mode, but I was pleasantly surprised by the IAF for the bird and animals. There were some issues if I had too much foreground clutter where the IAF wouldn't track the bird or lock onto it, but if the subject didn't have any obstruction in its view, it worked fantastic, and I was able to capture some really beautiful photos because of it. Super crisp, super brilliant. Now we move on to the buffer. I don't do a lot of high-speed shooting with subjects, and I really don't necessarily need 30 frames per second, but holy shit was I impressed with how quickly the camera fired off 120 frames in 3 seconds. My CF Express card was 100% full in under 60 seconds with the buffer. One of the best things about the camera, though, is that you can finally access the menu and the camera settings when the camera is buffering. You can also resume shooting while it's buffering as long as it's cleared some of the frames. To clear the buffer once, it only took about 3 to 4 seconds max. In most cases, it was incredibly fast. I can't wait to do some more tests with this when I get mine back in March. Overall, the A1 exceeded my expectations in almost every area. When I first heard the camera launch, I was kind of excited, but not that excited about it. But it wasn't until I actually started shooting with it that it really opened my eyes to just how amazing the image quality is on this camera. And it's really kind of left me questioning, you know, am I actually going to need my other cameras like my A7S III or my A7R4? Because this camera literally does it all. It's got high megapixels. It also shoots super fast. It shoots 8K video. The 4K video on it looks incredible. There's really nothing this camera can't do at this point. So I'm really excited to see what happens when I actually get my full production model in March. It's important to note that I am a sponsored Sony shooter. However, they didn't pay for this review or give me a camera for free. I just had it for a little over 3 days to test. With that being said, I was originally only going to get one Alpha 1, but now after using it for just these 3 days, I'm 100% going to buy 2 more of these because I believe that it's probably the best camera on the market currently, and I really can't wait to see what else Sony comes out with. Hands down, this camera, probably one of the best cameras I've ever used, and I really can't wait to use it professionally on real jobs. Now, what are you most excited about when it comes to the Alpha 1? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you enjoyed what you saw today, please like, subscribe, and as always, happy shooting. Have a wonderful day, guys. Cheers.